You know, that quiet you build for yourself after everything's been ripped away? That deep, almost painful stillness where you can finally breathe again, but the scars still ache with every intake of air? That's where I am. And it all started because I tried to love a child who ultimately decided my life was just a convenient story to tell. Chloe came into my life when she was 8. Her mom had passed away years before, and by the time her dad, Michael, and I started dating, she was a bit of a whirlwind. 3 different schools, a string of nannies, and a handful of behavioral issues that Michael tried his best to ignore. But I didn't see a problem child. I saw a little girl who was hurting, who had lost so much more than her young mind could process, and was just trying to find her way back to some kind of safety. I married Michael 2 years later. It wasn't always a fairy tale, not by a long shot. Chloe didn't exactly warm up to me overnight. She never called me mom, which I never expected her to, but slowly, painstakingly, she started letting me in. She'd let me braid her hair, tiny, intricate patterns I'd learned just for her. She'd begrudgingly accept my help with math homework, and sometimes, on nights when the world felt too big and scary, she'd creep into my side of the bed. By the time she turned 13, I honestly believed we were finally on the right path. We weren't best friends, no, but she trusted me. Or so I thought. Her teenage years were rough, I'll give her that. She pushed every boundary, tested every limit. She had this uncanny talent for twisting facts, just enough to paint herself as the innocent victim in any scenario. Still, I gave her space. We went to therapy together. I devoured every book I could find about parenting grieving children. When Michael worked late, I was the one at school meetings, cheering at soccer games, or picking her up from the principal's office after she got caught skipping class. By her senior year, the air between us was thick with tension. She blamed me for Michael grounding her after some party incident, and it just spiraled from there. Silent treatments, passive aggression. I didn't even know she'd applied for a public scholarship essay contest until Brenda, one of my coworkers, forwarded me the link. At first, I didn't recognize it. The title was something like The Chains I Had to Break. Dramatic, yes, but not out of the ordinary for a college essay. Then I saw the author's name. And then, the second line, I survived years under the control of a woman who smiled in public but made me feel like I didn't deserve to exist in private. I had to read it 3 times. My mind was reeling. Maybe it was fiction, I thought. A metaphor, exaggerated for dramatic effect. But then came the specifics. She described a home that sounded like a prison, with a stepmother who belittled every achievement, punished her for crying, laughed when she said she wanted to study psychology. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. But people did read it. A lot of people. Her essay was selected for a scholarship. The college published it on their official website. It started getting shared across social media, Twitter threads, Instagram infographics, TikToks with somber piano music playing while someone tearfully narrated parts of her story. Then came the phone calls. My manager at the school in Atlanta, Georgia, called me in. Parents were raising concerns. A few days later, I was asked to take a leave of absence while they reviewed the matter. Human Resources was spineless. They said they had to prioritize community image. I tried to defend myself, tried to explain that none of it was true, that there had to be some misunderstanding. They didn't want to hear it. My reputation went down like a house of cards. A few of our mutual friends distanced themselves immediately. My own sister, Sarah, called and hesitantly asked if there was something I'd never told her. That, I think, broke me more than anything else, the fact that even the people closest to me thought I might be capable of the things she'd written. When I confronted Chloe, calmly, just trying to understand, she acted shocked that I was upset. She said it was her truth, and if I was upset, maybe I needed to reflect on my actions. Then she had the audacity to say she hadn't named me, so I shouldn't be taking it personally. Not taking it personally, we lived in a small town. She didn't have to name me. Michael just stood there. He didn't back her, but he didn't defend me either. He just said maybe we both needed to cool off, that it wasn't worth blowing up the family over an essay. 2 weeks later, I moved out. He didn't stop me. I kept waiting for someone, anyone, to ask for my side, to question the story. But they never did. Her story was powerful. It hit all the right notes for people to rally behind, a poor girl, abused by her evil stepmother, rising above it all to chase her dreams. Meanwhile, I was the woman in the shadows, the monster in the margins of her fairy tale. There was no place left for me in that story. I kept thinking it would pass, that surely once the initial wave of attention died down, people would move on. Or maybe the school would finish their investigation and realize there was no history of complaints, no proof, no pattern because it never happened. But they didn't need evidence. All they needed was a story that sounded real enough, and a scapegoat who didn't fight back loud enough. I officially lost my job a month later. The HR rep gave me a rehearsed apology, said they'd decided not to renew my contract for the next school year, which was just a nice way of saying, don't come back. I packed up my things in silence. The classroom I had decorated for years felt foreign to me by then. My name had been ripped off the door. The student art I used to hang with pride had already been replaced. I remember going home that day, well, not home. My sister Sarah had offered me her guest room. It was humiliating, 38, out of work, living out of 2 suitcases in a room with floral wallpaper and a twin-sized bed. All because of something a girl I once considered my daughter had written to win money. The worst part wasn't even the job. It was the silence from Michael. If I was a monster in Chloe's story, he became the ghost in mine. He didn't reach out, not once. No call, no message, not even a forwarded email asking if I was okay. He let me go down without so much as blinking. And I knew then that our marriage had been over long before that essay ever got posted online. I kept wondering if she'd feel even an ounce of guilt. I wasn't holding my breath for an apology, but something. A moment of hesitation, a glance back. But Chloe thrived. She gave interviews, went viral on a few more platforms. She was hailed as this survivor, this brave voice for kids who'd been silenced. I watched her glow on my phone screen while sitting in a room I didn't belong to anymore. It was almost impressive how polished her lies were. She added new layers to her story every time she told it. She started claiming I'd threatened to cut her off financially, controlled what she wore, read her texts, even hit her once and told her no one would believe her because I was a teacher. None of it was true. But it didn't matter. People didn't want the truth. They wanted drama, something to rally against. I became that villain for them, easy, faceless, distant. I hired a lawyer, just to see if I could do anything about it. Defamation, maybe. But apparently, since she never used my full name and never directly called me out in any official interviews, it was too slippery. I was warned that suing a college student over a scholarship essay would only make me look worse. The damage was already done. My marriage dissolved quietly. No court battles, no big showdown. We didn't have kids together, so the legal part was fast. Emotionally, though, it took longer than I expected. I kept thinking you would realize what had happened and come find me. I used to believe that maybe he'd read the essay again, this time without the blindfold, and see how none of it made sense. But he never did. I learned through mutual friends that Chloe went on to graduate early, got some kind of award at her college for student leadership. She used the scholarship money to backpack around Europe for a summer. I should have felt angry. Instead, I just felt hollow. Like she'd taken everything, my career, my marriage, my name, and then had the audacity to live happily ever after with it. The people who used to know me, only halfway, started to whisper again, this time in quieter tones. Some began to question if the whole thing was a bit too convenient. I had one old coworker, Brenda, reach out and say she never fully believed the story but didn't want to say anything while things were sensitive. I didn't respond. Where were those doubts when it could have helped? The worst was running into Jessica, an old student of mine, at the grocery store. She looked at me like I was someone else. Said hi with such hesitation, like she wasn't sure if she was supposed to be nice to me or report me. That night, I cried harder than I had in months. Not because I was angry, but because I realized how easily someone could take your story and turn it against you, and how easily the people around you would go along with it. I tried rebuilding my life. Slowly, I started doing freelance tutoring, mostly online, where people couldn't recognize my face. I stopped using social media. I focused on what I could control, my time, my space, the way I responded to things. It wasn't much, but it was something. And just when I thought I was finally starting to put it all behind me, after years of silence, Chloe came back. It started with an email, short, casual, like nothing had happened. She said she was done with college. Said life hadn't exactly gone the way she thought it would. Said she had nowhere to go. No one to turn to. She wanted to meet. She wanted to talk. I stared at that message for hours. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I already knew exactly what I was going to say. And it was going to be on my terms this time. The first time I saw her again was in a tiny diner in Athens, Georgia, 2 towns away from where I now lived. I picked the spot on purpose. Neutral, unfamiliar, out of the way. Somewhere nobody would recognize us. Somewhere I could walk away if I needed to and not feel eyes burning into my back. Chloe looked different. Not bad, not worse, just different. Her hair was shorter, her nails bitten down, and she didn't have that smug glow she used to wear like a badge. She looked like someone who hadn't slept much, but I wasn't there to play sympathy games. She gave me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and said it was good to see me. I told her to stop. Told her not to pretend like we were catching up after a long trip abroad. I reminded her this wasn't a reunion. It was a meeting. One I didn't know if I wanted to have. She said she knew. Said she just wanted to talk. Said a lot had happened. I asked her what exactly she wanted from me now, because I was done dancing around things. I told her I wasn't interested in playing the forgiving stepmother who opens her arms after being burned alive. She didn't try to cry. I'll give her that. But she did shift in her seat and look away when I brought up the essay. She said she didn't think it would go that far, that she never meant for it to blow up like it did, that it was just supposed to be for a scholarship. And then things spiraled. She admitted that once people started praising her, she didn't know how to stop. I told her that spirals don't happen without someone pushing them. She apologized, or tried to. It wasn't for what she did. It was for how it turned out. She said she never thought I'd lose my job. That she figured everyone would forget after a few weeks. That it would just be a one-time thing to help with tuition. I reminded her that I lost more than a job. I lost my home, my reputation, my marriage. I lost people I cared about who never even asked for my side. She nodded like she got it, but I don't think she ever really did. Finally, she said what she'd really come for. She had nowhere to go. Michael had moved out of state. Her college friends were just that, college friends. Her savings had dried up. She had no support system. She wanted to move back in with me, just until she got back on her feet. I leaned back in my seat, took a slow breath, and told her that I had one condition. I told her if she wanted a place to stay, she would have to sit down in front of a camera and record a full, unedited confession. I told her I wanted her to tell the truth, that she made it all up, that she lied about being abused, that she used my name and role in her life as a tool to get money, and that those lies ruined a real person's livelihood. I told her she had to post it herself, on her own platform, with her face and her voice, and no editing tricks. And then, and only then, we'd talk about whether she could stay in my spare room. She looked stunned, like she hadn't even considered that would be my price. She asked if I was serious. I told her I'd never been more serious in my life. She tried to reason with me, said that doing that would kill her chances at future jobs, that people would call her a fraud, that she might lose the friends and contacts she'd made over the years. I asked her what she thought happened to my chances, my job, my friends, my dignity. I told her the truth was uncomfortable. That was the whole point. She said she'd have to think about it. I told her not to take too long, that I wasn't in the business of giving second chances to people who treated my life like a disposable narrative. We left without hugging. Without any warmth at all, just a cold understanding that whatever fantasy she had of being welcomed back was dead on arrival unless she was willing to come clean. I didn't tell her this, but I wouldn't have let her move in even if she did confess. I didn't want her in my space again. I didn't want her sitting on my couch, eating my food, breathing my air. But I needed her to own what she'd done publicly. I needed people to see the other side of the story, the one that never got a platform. I didn't think she would do it, though. Back home, I sat on my couch in my rented house, one I paid for with freelance tutoring and remote consulting work, and let the quiet wrap around me. I had some investments, and that's how I managed to move to another town back then. It was a strange peace. Not victory, not closure. A few days later, she emailed me again. She hadn't done the video. Not yet. But she said she was thinking about it. Said maybe it was time. Yes, she was still blocked. Email was her only option. Plus, she couldn't unsend it if she changed her mind. I didn't reply. Not yet. I wanted her to stew in it a little longer. Let her feel the weight of what it really meant to tell the truth after years of benefiting from a lie. I wondered if she would really do it. I was fine with watching and waiting. I had nothing to lose. It took her 2 weeks. I didn't hear from Chloe during that time. No emails, not even a curious poke on social media. Just silence, which was fine by me. I wasn't sitting around refreshing my inbox or waiting by the phone. I had a life now. Quiet, small, nothing flashy, but it was mine. And I'd built it brick by brick after she tore the old one down. Then one morning, I woke up to a single notification from a burner account I didn't recognize. No followers, no profile picture. The link inside led to a private video titled "The Truth About My College Essay." I clicked it, and there she was. Chloe didn't wear makeup in the video. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes rimmed with something that might have been regret, or maybe just exhaustion. The background was blank, probably a hotel wall or a borrowed room. She took a shaky breath and said that she wanted to set the record straight. She didn't read from a script. That was the first surprise. She talked directly to the camera, stumbling over her words a few times, but always pushing through. She said she made it all up. She said there was never any abuse, that I had never laid a hand on her, never yelled at her, never treated her like anything but family. She admitted the essay was a lie crafted to win sympathy, attention, and ultimately money. She said the idea came to her after reading other scholarship essays online and realizing that the most powerful stories were always the ones drenched in pain. She said she never expected it to go viral. That when it did, and interviews started coming in, she froze. She didn't want to disappoint people. Didn't want to lose what she'd gained. So, she kept the lie going. She talked about what it cost me, my job, my reputation, the friends who ghosted me, the family that stopped inviting me to anything. She said she saw it happening in real time and still said nothing. She said she hated herself for it. I didn't believe her. By the end, she was crying. Not the loud, showy sobs of someone trying to beg forgiveness, just quiet, painful tears she didn't wipe away. She ended the video by saying she didn't expect people to forgive her, that maybe they shouldn't. But she said she owed me this, the truth. Finally, in her own words. I watched the entire thing once, then again, then again. And then I sent it to my old boss, to the school board that had voted to dismiss me without appeal, to a handful of the friends who had believed the worst without question, and to my lawyer just in case. I didn't respond to her right away, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted her to sit in that moment, the one where the truth finally echoed louder than the lie. She emailed again 3 days later, said she had nowhere to go and had honored her end of the deal. Asked if she could come and stay. I told her no. I told her that a confession was not a ticket back into my life, that doing the bare minimum after years of damage wasn't something I was going to reward with free housing and emotional comfort. I told her that I appreciated the video, that I hoped it helped her find some peace or her own redemption, but that I was not her next step. I was not her refuge. She had made her bed and she would need to lie in it. Instead, she thanked me. That was the first and last time she used those words. She said she understood. Said she was staying with someone from her college writing group for now and would figure things out from there. I didn't reply after that. A week later, the video went viral. Not as wildly as the original essay, but it gained traction fast. People shared it with outrage, with apologies, with anger at how quickly they believed a lie. Some posted long threads about how cancel culture was dangerous. Others praised her bravery for telling the truth, too little, too late, though it may have been. A few even sent me messages. Some were old colleagues, some strangers. Some said they were sorry. Others admitted they didn't know what to believe anymore, but that the video shook something in them. It didn't change the past. My job was still gone. The friends I lost hadn't all come back. But for the first time in a long while, my name wasn't sitting in the dirt. It was out there again. Maybe not polished, but no longer buried. And as for Chloe, I didn't keep tabs. I heard through mutual contacts that the college she graduated from removed the essay from their website and her local interviews were taken down. That she lost a job opportunity. That some of her so-called friends distanced themselves. But she was still standing, still figuring it out. Good. She had time now. Time to sit with the mess she made. Time to learn what it really meant to rebuild from nothing. I hope she uses it well. The video Chloe posted got more traction than I ever expected. At first, it was a slow ripple of shares and reposts, but then it hit a nerve with people. Comment sections were filled with debates, arguments, and think pieces. Some called her brave, others called her a manipulator trying to clean up her image. I didn't say much at the time, didn't try to explain, didn't try to justify, but the confusion never really died down. I kept seeing one question over and over again: why would she suddenly come clean? People assumed she had grown a conscience, or maybe she was afraid of being caught. Some said it was guilt. Others said maybe she was trying to launch a rebrand now that college was over and she wanted a clean slate. She came clean because I made her. I'd kept this part quiet, but the truth is I recorded her. Not on purpose at first. When we met at that diner, I had my phone out because I'd been writing a note to myself while I waited. I never hit stop when she walked in. But it stayed on. The audio picked up everything: her voice, mine, the clink of her spoon against the coffee cup, her nervous laughter when she admitted that the abuse never happened, that she only said it for the essay, that she didn't expect it to spiral the way it did, that she never meant for me to lose my job. I listened to that recording that same night, played it over and over again until I memorized her exact words. Then I sent her a message with the file attached. I told her I had no interest in destroying her life, but I wasn't going to sit quietly either. If she wanted even a single ounce of grace from me, she needed to own what she did. It wasn't about revenge. And yes, maybe a part of me wanted people to know I wasn't a monster. Maybe a part of me wanted her to feel the way I felt when people turned their backs without a second thought. But mostly, I wanted her to take responsibility, and she did, because she had no choice. So, yes, I lied about her taking time to think. Now that the truth was out and people were trying to rewrite their opinion on both of us, I found myself thinking about everything I had kept hidden, not just from others, but from myself too. For starters, Michael, Chloe's father. People always asked why he didn't step in, why he didn't defend me, why he let his daughter's lie blow up my entire life without saying a word. The truth is, he barely paid attention, not just to Chloe, but to everything. It felt like we lived separate lives in the same house. I didn't divorce him earlier because I didn't want Chloe to lose her mother again. He never wanted to be a full-time dad, but he loved the image of being one. When Chloe's essay went viral, he said he didn't know what to believe, but it would probably be best for everyone if I didn't escalate things. Said he was trying to stay out of the drama for Chloe's sake, not mine. I realized then that his silence wasn't confusion. It was convenience. He didn't want to pick sides, not because he couldn't, but because it would have required effort. And effort wasn't his thing. So, no, he never stood up for me, never made a statement, never tried to correct anything. He watched it all happen from a distance and washed his hands of it. And honestly, I was tired of pretending that surprised me. There were other things, too. Things I didn't share in the beginning because I was afraid. Afraid of how it would look. Afraid that people would twist it into justification for Chloe's lie. Like the fact that she and I never really got along. I tried. I really did. I picked her up from school, packed her lunches, stayed up with her during her fevers, and helped her practice for her school plays. But no matter how much I tried, I was always second to her idea of the perfect absentee parent. And whenever she got mad, she would say cruel things she learned from movies or overheard from adults she shouldn't have been around. She once told me I'd never be a real mother because my love didn't count. That was when she was 13. I cried in my room for hours that night, but I never brought it up again. I chalked it up to teenage anger. There were dozens of moments like that. Moments that stung. Moments that built up until I started walking on eggshells without realizing it. And I never told anyone, not even my friends, because I was afraid people would say I didn't love her. That maybe I deserved the essay. But I did love her. In the way someone loves a houseplant they've nurtured for years, even though it never blossoms. You keep watering it, keep hoping, keep telling yourself that maybe next season will be different. So when she came to that diner, when she looked me in the eye and told me the essay was all a lie, it didn't feel like relief. It felt like the final nail in a very long, painful chapter of my life. And now I was moving forward. I had a job, one I earned on merit without having to explain my past. I had a new circle of friends, quiet, careful people who didn't care about social media or gossip. I slept through the night without waking up to nightmares about hashtags with my name in them. I didn't hate Chloe. Not anymore. But I didn't want her in my life either. Not unless she was willing to do more than just post a video. Not unless she could finally understand that love isn't built on apologies. It's built on action. And maybe someday she'd get there. But until then, I wasn't holding my breath. If you were in my shoes, would you have pushed for the public confession, or just walked away?